You know, ladies and gentlemen, in 7 years will be anniversary of the first all-sound British motion picture. Now, trivia point this. Guess who directed it? Well, the most famous British director of all time, Alfred Hitchcock. And what was the plot? It was a film noir trope. So today, in our remote control screenshots podcast, we're going to talk about a movie that I saw maybe 47 years ago. Not the full version, but a late night on CBC. It's called Blackmail. Now, this 1929 British thriller drama is directed by Alfred Hitchcock and stars Annie Otter's true British sound feature film of long length. Voted the best British film of 1929 in a UK poll that year it was released. In 2017, in a poll of 150 actors, directors, writers, producers, and critics for Time Out magazine, it ranked Blackmail as the 59th best British film ever. Now, in this direct plot, on 26 April 29, Scotland Yard Detective Frank Webber, played by John Longden, escorts his girlfriend Alice to a tea house. They have an argument and Frank storms out. While reconsidering his actions, he sees Alice leave with Mr. Crewe, an artist she had earlier agreed to meet. Now, Crewe persuades a reluctant Alice into coming up to see his studio. She admires a painting of a laughing clown and uses his palette and brushes to paint a cartoonish drawing of a face, and he adds a few strokes of a naked feminine figure, and by guiding her hand, designed a picture with her name. He gives her a dancer's outfit, and Crewe sings and plays Miss Up to Date on the piano. Now, when Crewe steals a kiss, to Alice's disgust, she is changing and is prepared to leave, but he takes her dress from the changing area. He attempts to rape her, and her cries for help are not heard on the street below. In desperation, Alice grabs a nearby bread knife and kills him. How a bread knife is going to kill somebody, I don't know, but it's probably more sharp back then than now. She angrily tears a hole in the painting of the clown, then leaves after attempting to remove evidence of her presence in the flat, but she accidentally leaves her gloves behind. She then walks the streets of London all night and days. Very, very good visuals in this Hitchcock sequence. Now, when the body of her attacker is found, Frank is assigned to the case and finds one of Alice's gloves. He also recognizes the dead man, but conceals this from his superior. Taking the glove, he goes to see Alice at her father's tobacco shop, but she is too distraught to speak. As they converse privately in the shop's telephone booth, Tracy, played by Donald Calthorpe, arrives. He had seen Alice go up to Crewe's flat, and he has the other glove. When he sees Frank with the other one, he attempts to blackmail them. His first demands are petty ones, and they accede. Frank learns by phone that Tracy is wanted for questioning. He was seen near the scene and has a criminal record. Frank sends for a policeman and tells Tracy he will pay for the murder. Alice is apprehensive, but still does not speak up. The tension mounts. When the police arrive, Tracy's nerve finally breaks and he flees. The chase leads to the British Museum, where he clambers onto the dome roof of the reading room and slips, crashing through a skylight and falling to his death inside. The police assume he was the murderer. Now, unaware of this, Alice feels compelled to give herself up and goes to see the chief inspector at New Scotland Yard. Before she confesses to him, the inspector receives a telephone call and asks Frank to deal with Alice. She finally tells Frank the truth, that it was self-defense against an attack she cannot bear to speak of, and they leave together. As they do, a policeman walks past, carrying the damaged painting of the laughing clown and the cartoon canvas where Alice painted over her name. Now, a very, very taut thriller, kind of loses it in black and white, but the sound version, non-sound version, but the sound version just goes along very quickly. Like I said, a very, very interesting plot that it's kind of been mimicked through the years, the assault, the victim, the whole situation. Now, when this began production as a silent film, they wanted to cash in on the new popularity of talkies, so the film's producer, John Maxwell of BIP, gave Hitchcock the go-ahead to film a portion of the movie in sound. Most sources state that Hitchcock thought the idea absurd and surreptitiously filmed almost the entire feature in sound, but in reality the silent version, which was largely completed, was cleverly used for several sequences with non-synchronous sound and dialogue, where the actors' faces were not visible. Now, the opening 6.5 minutes of the sound version are silent, with musical accompaniment, as are numerous Shorter scenes later, and the entire final chase sequence is from the silent version, with occasional non-synchronized vocal interjections, including Donald Caltrop's last words on the dome of the British Museum's reading room. Thus, it can be argued that the sound version of Blackmail, despite BIP's publicity, is a part talkie. Gaumont British's High Treason, directed by Maurice Elvey, who was also turned to sound film midway during production. Much like Blackmail, much of the silent footage in High Treason was maintained and dubbed over for the sound version, with Elvey himself voicing some of the minor roles. So it wasn't completely a planned goal, but with sound, it was getting more and more people at the theaters. By 31, 32, that was a de rigueur. Now, again, Blackmail was marketed as one of Britain's earliest all-talkie feature films, was recorded in the RCA Photophone sound on film process. The first U.S. all-talkie film, licensed in New York, was released in July 28 by Warner Brothers in their Videophone sound on disc process. Now, this film was shot at British and Dominion's Imperial Studio Soundstage in Boreham Wood, the first purpose-built sound studio in Europe. Now, the lead actress Annie Ondra was raised in Prague and had a pronounced Czech accent that was felt unusable for the film. Now, sound was in infancy at the time, and it was not possible to post-dub her voice. Rather than replace her and reshoot the scenes, actress Joan Barry was hired to speak the dialogue off camera while Ondra lip-synced her lines. This makes Ondra's performance seem slightly awkward. Now, Hitchcock also used several elements that would become his favorite trademarks, including a beautiful blonde in peril and a famous landmark in the finale. Without informing the producers, Hitchcock used the Schriften process to film the scenes in the reading room of the British Museum since the light levels were too low for normal filming. Now, the film was a critical commercial hit. The sound was praised as inventive, and a completed silent version of Blackmail was released in 1929 shortly after the talkie version hit theaters. Now, the silent version of Blackmail actually ran longer in theaters and proved more popular, largely because most theaters in Britain were not yet equipped for sound. Despite the popularity of the silent version, history best remembers the landmark talkie version of Blackmail. It is the version now generally available, although some critics consider the silent version superior. Hitchcock filmed the silent version with Sam Livesey as the chief inspector, and a sound version with Harvey Brandban in the same role. Now, Hitchcock's normal cameo is in this movie, a signature occurrence in many of his films. In this one, he shows himself being bothered by a small boy as he reads a book on the London Underground. This is probably the lengthiest of Hitchcock's cameo appearances, as he appears around 10 minutes after the start. As the director became better known to audiences, especially when he appeared as the host of his own TV series, he dramatically shortened his on-screen appearances. Now, first screened on 21st June 1929 at the Regal in Marble Arch. The film also had a showing at the Capitol Cinema in London on 28 July after the press and cinema distributors viewing at the Regal. Now, Blackmail, again, one of the most successful releases of that year and received critical praise. Now, in a public poll, again, Blackmail was voted the best British film of 1929, largely on the basis of the silent version, which, as mentioned above, was more widely seen. In the same national UK poll, the best films of the respective years were The Constant Nymph in 1928, Rookery Nook in 1930, The Middle Watch in 1931, and Sunshine Susie in 1932. Now, as an early sound film, again, historical significance is strong. Blackmail, again, is frequently cited by film historians as landmark. It is often called the first truly British all-talkie. Two future directors worked on this production. Ronald Nemi operated the clapperboard, and Michael Powell took on on-set publicity photographs. Now, earlier British part sound films included The Gentleman, a short film in the photofilm sound and film process, was an excerpt of the 9 to 11 review, directed by William J. Elliott and released in the UK in June 25. The part sound, The Clue of the New Pin, based on the novel by Edgar Wallace, was filmed in British Photophone, a sound on disc system using 12-inch discs. Now, The Crimson Circle, a UK-German silent film, also based on a Wallace novel, was dubbed after the fact with a photofilm sound on film process. Now, Black Waters, a British-produced sound film shot in the States with an almost exclusively American cast and crew, was released on 6th of April 1929. Now, on March 29, New Pin and Crimson Circle were trade shown at the same screening for film exhibitors in London. Now, in 2022, the plot of Downton Abbey, A New Era, produced by Ronald Amy's grandson Gareth, is partly inspired by Blackmail. Now, the restoration was a high process. The silent version was completed in 2012, and a restoration of part of BFI's £2 million Save the Hitchcock 9 project to restore all of the director's surviving silent films. Like Hitchcock's other British films, all of which are copyrighted worldwide, Blackmail has been heavily bootlegged on home video. Additionally, various licensed, restored releases of both silent and sound versions have appeared on DVD and video on demand from Optimum in the UK, Lionsgate in the US, and other international distributors. So, I've only seen Blackmail once, but for 1929, haven't seen the silent version, so I couldn't. But for 1921, it was a good pace. But I did notice the limb syncing, and now I understand what was going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, the idea with Hitchcock, he was always involved in something. And he was there at the start, he was there in the middle, he was there in the finish. But Alfred Hitchcock, what a talent, ladies and gentlemen, what a talent. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like our Hitchcock podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And don't forget, when you follow the master, you'll learn much. Thanks for listening. Bye.